A few short months ago, Microsoft's Zune was a potential iPod killer, touting desired new features and a potential alternative to all things Apple. But barely a week out of the gate, the Zune is failing to attract any consumers. Now, does the Zune stand a chance, or is it already time to write it off? It's a love-hate relationship, Bill. I'm sorry. It's also the Loop. Joining us tonight from San Francisco, Wired Magazine products editor Mark McCluskey, and from Los Angeles, editor-in-chief of IGN.com's Gear Channel, Jerry Block. Welcome to the Loop, gentlemen.
Hey, nice to be here.
Jerry, let me start with you. Why did the Zune have such a lackluster launch? I saw billboards everywhere. All the cool kids were yakking about it. It seemed like the tech community was actually behind this product. What happened?
Microsoft was taking a lot when they decided to challenge the iPod. They're coming up against iPod's restrictive and Apple's restrictive DRMs that tie people to the actual iPod hardware. And they're launching against a general consumer consciousness that necessitates an iPod to be cool. It's a lot to challenge, but on the other hand, the hardware is actually pretty solid.
Right. I mean, Mark, tell me, I thought the Zune was kind of cool. I mean, we opened it up. It certainly seemed cool. Microsoft spent a lot of money telling us it was cool. Is it a bad device?
Yeah, it's not that it's bad hardware or a bad device. It's just that it feels a little rushed to the market. It feels a little bit half-baked that they're just trying to get it out here for the holidays instead of really thinking about sort of the best experience for consumers.
Well, what can Microsoft do to save this device? Or is it too late for that, Mark?
You know, it's not too late. Microsoft's in this for the long term. It's kind of like, you know, the original Xbox. Everybody sort of laughed at the Xbox, and, you know, now Sony and Nintendo are trying to catch up with the 360 after a year. It's the sort of thing where they're going to hang out, they're going to add features, they're going to see what people want, and, you know, they're in this for the long term. It's not about this holiday, it's about 5 years from now for Microsoft.
And you're exactly right on that point. Microsoft is launching a 3-year campaign at minimum with the Zune. There are going to be follow-up products, and the original Zune hardware is upgradable. The Wi-Fi capabilities will be expanded.
Well, Jerry, let me see. There's an interesting point that was brought up, and it was like, hey, you know what? We got the Xbox, right? We know Microsoft launched that. They wanted to make things better with the Xbox 360. They went a long way. Now, looking at the feature set of the Zune, yeah, I'm sure the Zune 2 will be awesome, but just like Sony and Nintendo kind of poached the idea of an online marketplace, won't Apple just implement the Zune's best features in the iPod and make this device a moot point?
It'll really depend. As soon as Apple decides to pull out a touchscreen iPod, they'll blow the current Zune out of the water. Everyone's waiting for an iPod bomb to drop, but we will see when that happens. Wi-Fi is also adaptable, but Microsoft does have some strong points. They can pull some interesting tie-ins via the Xbox 360 marketplace, and it's becoming an issue of what will they expand, really?
Right. But Mark, what about the software side of things? Weren't there some issues, early reports of glitches, people having trouble with the Zune?
You know, there have been some that's to be expected. I mean, I think the upgradability is a big key here. And, you know, out of the box, everybody picks it up. It's like, hey, great, Wi-Fi. Why can't I download songs, you know, at a hotspot?
Right.
And you're going to be able to. You know, that's coming. It's not that it sort of sits there statically. So,
well, what about the download service itself, Mark? How does the Zune marketplace compare with something like an iTunes or even a Napster or a Rhapsody?
You know, it's I think, perfectly competitive, certainly with Napster and Rhapsody. And the whole thinking behind the Zune, the whole reason for the Zune is to have that sort of integrated experience between store and player that Apple kind of enjoys with the iPod and iTunes. And, you know, I think it's a pretty good store. I think it's a good user experience. And,
okay.
You know,
this sounds like a lot of gushing remarks about this device that nobody's buying. Jerry, is it the packaging? Is it the price point? Why is nobody actually coming and joining the social?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of people have music libraries that they've paid for, tied to the iPod and iTunes. The DRMs restrict them to an iPod only, which is a huge barrier to jump over. If you've invested money in an iTunes library, you are shackled to your iPod forever, or at least until you pull some tricks to get rid of it.
Please, Mark, go ahead.
Sorry, Jeremy just makes a good point. It's not just to iTunes. It's the Zune doesn't play all of the stuff that Microsoft has sort of branded as plays for sure for the past couple of years. And you know, that's something that
you're
I think
exactly right. And the fact that that Microsoft is tying themselves to their hardware with their content is exactly the same market model that Apple pioneered. We wish that they had really pioneered some ways to free ourselves from DRM restrictions, but nevertheless, they're playing the same game. It's exactly
interesting. Microsoft going up against a company who has a bit of a monopoly, and it's hurting them. Wow, perhaps a taste of their own medicine. I kind of like that. Thanks to Mark and Jerry for keeping us in the loop. I appreciate it. Now listen, the Zune may have some problems, but Microsoft appears to be ready to go the distance, hopefully with some times and a little bit of revisions, maybe some firmware upgrades. They may prove to be some decent competition for the iPod. But for now, be good kids, or Santa may just welcome you to the social this holiday season.